Welcome everyone to the Reality of Health. This is part 2 for mother's milk. And could be also called why you should breastfeed. Doesn't matter really. For sake of time, let's just get into this. Obviously, you can have problems, right? We all know that. Nothing's ever perfect all the time. You can try your best. You can literally do everything you think you are doing is right, and also that you've checked all the boxes, only to find out something's wrong. Something's not working out. So you have issues like you see here in this graphic. Common problems mothers face in breastfeeding. Not going to get too deep into these. Just going to say that, of course, there's going to be issues. There's lots of ways to figure things out. I'm sure there's many people you can talk to that you know of that went through these and what they did. My only advice would be to make sure whatever you're going to do to correct these situations are natural, holistic, they're healthy, they're not, the normal medicine that you go to big buildings, starts with an H. There's lots and lots of different ways to work with these situations. All right, here's just a few of them. Obviously, latching for the child is important. Got to know how to do that properly. Side note on that, this you see here where when the child doesn't latch properly, or if you're doing a lot of bottle feeding, you can get what's called a disproportionate jaw. The jaw will be in instead of forward because it didn't latch properly or it was on a bottle. Just saying. That's really important. So knowing how to do this, huge. And then the position of the child. Think of how do you drink laying down on your side? Just be cognizant. I'm not here. Eric, you're a man. Well, it doesn't matter. There's physics involved. It just is what it is. All right, so a few of these. Yes, you can have problems with the breast itself. Lots of ways to fix a lot of these things. I'm going to say for things that generally you see here, a lot of this is that we ignore that tissue. Eric, that's ridiculous. You don't ignore those. Especially men never ignore them. Well, what I'm saying is, if you don't take care of them, everything from maybe castor oil packs because you're having an issue with an abscess or mastitis or a blocked duct or thrush. You can even do things like massage. You can use warming, like a hot water bottle. There's things you can do that you don't have to jump into medicines and antibiotics and all that other garbage. Keep it natural. Keep it simple. Anyway. And then when you have things that are not, let's say, health-based, they're more just, they're not conducive to life, like lack of support, or maybe it's just the baby's just not latching. Got to go to work and these kind of things. Well, that's not what this podcast is really about, but you got to work these things out. Sometimes you got to give up some comforts and make this happen. I'm just saying, that's obviously there's benefits to using mother's milk and breastfeeding as long as possible. How long would that be, Eric? Well, that's up to you, but now I'm going to show you a graphic at the end. It might change your mind. Either way, the longer you breastfeed, the less you have to deal with asthma and obesity, and type 1 diabetes, respiratory diseases, diarrhea and vomiting, SIDS, ear infections. And then you have less high blood pressure and ovarian cancer and breast cancer and type 2 diabetes. I'm going to say, you may not agree, and I get it. It's totally fine. What your decision is your decision. I'm going to say that most of the healthiest places in the world, they go for at least 2 years. That's ridiculous, Eric. 2 years? Yeah, it's actually not that long. Your babies grow fast. They need a lot of nutrition. And it helps you. You always think of it like, oh, this is a pain, rather than, Well, having a baby hurts first, and then it's a rewarding experience, and that connection is really important. And if a child couldn't actually fend for itself in the forest or your farm or whatever, God knows how long ago, finding food to eat. I don't care if he's walking around, he goes, oh, there's a worm and I'm going to eat it. If you stop breastfeeding at 3 months or 6 months and you let your baby go find his own food rather than 2 years, 2.5 years, he's not going to find anything. He's just going to die of malnutrition. You got to think things like, maybe it's not so bad to go that long. Of course, it says here most babies aren't breastfed as long as recommended. Of course. Then there are ways that you can store. Okay, well, guess what? The more you store and for longer, the nutritional value crashes. It literally crashes. It's not good for very long. When it's in you before you give it to the child is its best and most nutritious. It's the right temperature. No oxygen has gotten to it. No bacteria has gotten to it. You don't have to worry about having sterilized containers. All the stuff goes away. Is it inconvenient? Well, I guess you could say it might be here and there, but it's also pretty convenient to have a bottle attached to your body. And all you got to do is pull up the shirt and whip it out and, take it with you. It's always there. There's good and bad things you can find in any situation, right? Anyway, I'm just not a big fan of storing. Well, we can freeze it. Yeah, you can. Again, not great. When you freeze things, it changes fats. If there is water in anything and it freezes, it crystallizes. And when it crystallizes, it punctures the membranes, whatever those are, around protein cells and fat cells, and renders them denatured. Same thing with heat. So ever notice how if you take let's say a fresh piece of meat from an animal you butchered, and then you froze it, and then when you thaw it, there's liquid that comes out. That's from the water freezing. There is a substance in mother's milk that is the most important thing to have, and it's right away, the first 1 to 2-3 days, and that is colostrum. Maybe even heard it as a health supplement for yourself that you can buy. I don't recommend it all the time. You need to know if it's something that's actually good for you, and you got to test that. I will tell you, it is so stimulating. The higher quality you get, it can actually cause a lot of gut issues for a lot of people. There's also lactose in there, but even if you're not lactose intolerant, you're talking a lot of growth factors here. And, an adult sometimes can't handle that much of a steroidal, if you want to call it steroids and hormones, steroidal compounds, these growth-like factors. They can be irritating to the gut. Just to give you an example, how different it is between a human and a cow. Look how much higher lactoferrin is. It's 7 times higher. That's amazing. Your IgA, G, and M. Notice how IgA is much larger for us than the bovine, but the G is almost nothing compared to the bovine, which is really high. And then we get closer with the M, but still the bovine's got a little bit more. Insulin-like growth factor. This is also a hormone. 18 compared to 10. Why would that be? I would have to venture to say that that's probably because cows eat grass and we don't. So there's probably more sugar in our diet, plus from our, if I'm not mistaken yet, there's more sugar in our milk. Then look at the growth hormone. The normal amount of growth hormone is at 41 compared to basically non-existent in bovine colostrum. So if you want to use something like this for bodybuilding or athletics and things like that, you're really not getting as much as you think you're getting. A lot of it is just going to be hype. So unless you want to find some mother's milk Human, you're not getting everything you think you're getting. Even the epidermal growth factor looks like 4 to 8 times more. I just wanted you to get an idea of how dense human mother's milk is compared to cow. And yet we just automatically assume milk and cows. It's like, that's just what you think of. And yet, humans is better. That colostrum happens the first few days and starts to taper off. So I wanted to show you what this actually looks like. Isn't this amazing? Look how yellow that is at 1 to 3 days. It is so yellow. And then at 5, it's a little bit less. And then at 6, it's a little bit less. And then at 25, it's looking pretty much close to regular milk. That is called the growth phase. This is why it's the most important thing to do your first couple weeks. Get that colostrum. It sets up your baby's health in so many layers and areas, from brain and digestive and heart and nervous system, all of skin and hair and all of it. By the way, they need to get strong, and colostrum has a lot of factors in it that make you strong. Babies need to be strong. So don't neglect this the first 2-3 weeks. You gotta, don't go to bottle. Episode 3, we'll get into, going into these things like bottles and going into formula and this kind of thing. We'll get into it in episode 3. Colostrum, 1 to 4 days, yellow in color, highly concentrated with nutrients. Transitional milk, it's called, from days 5 to 20. Less yellow, becoming lighter. Breasts feel more full and tender. That's you. And then mature milk is 20 plus days or more. Like they say, the color may vary. Anyway, thought that was an easy way to kind of see the graph. All right, so Eric, how do I have quality breast milk? How do I feel good? How do I keep producing? Well, the first thing you would do is get rid of all of this garbage. This isn't even real food. If the burger in here was actually not from fast food, that's probably, and maybe the cheese, I'll give you that one, be the healthiest thing in here. The rest of this, you shouldn't be eating any of these things, especially all the sugar and colors and the artificial flavors and the artificial preservatives and all of the stuff that's going to make it from you into your milk and into the baby. Babies don't need this. Eric breaks down into components and it's deciphered by the mother, and only the good stuff goes through. Wrong. Everything goes through. There are some filters. There's some things that the mother's breast won't let go through the filters, but pretty much most of the bad things do. By the way, this is not going to make you feel good when you're going through post-pregnancy. I mean, this doesn't make people feel good when they're healthy. Definitely not when you're a mother. What can you do? Well, you can go carnivore. I'm kidding. I'd love to see you go carnivore as a mom. It's amazing. Works great. You don't have to. My point of this graph is to show you you can't neglect the animal foods when you're breastfeeding, okay? These should be a main staple, all of this, especially the ruminant animals, okay? The cattle, the lamb, the goat, this kind of thing. These are the most important, and then you get into less and less. I would say the dairy and the animal fats from like butter and ghee and really good quality, hopefully you can get raw milk and raw cheese. Those would be really, really good for you, and they'll make you feel good too. I think one of the reasons why mothers feel bad when they, how sometimes they just like, I just don't feel good, and so they'll go eat something that they like, that tastes good, that they feel like they can tolerate. And other things they eat and they can't tolerate them. They're like, man, I anything that smells like this smell or tastes like this, I'm going to barf it up. Well, I think a lot of that is because, I'll be frank, if you don't take care of yourself, and you're pretty much eating processed garbage food before you're pregnant, while you're pregnant, and then after you're pregnant, processed food that doesn't make you feel good, plus going through everything that your body is going through at the time, which is in a signaling mode to create quality milk for your baby. Your body is going to prioritize that. So you're not going to like certain smells and textures and flavors and these kinds of things. Well, the healthier you are before, during, and after, you'll have less of those issues. Eric, I was told it's all hormones. No, it's more than hormones. Hormones don't mean everything in everyone's body. I'm so tired of hearing that. Hormones are only a chemical that you deal with here and there. They're not always the end-all be-all of every situation. Okay. So if you want to use animal fats in your diet, and you can handle these because you feel fine, these are the ones you'd want to do. Notice, though, all these are going to be pastured, organic, and rendered properly. And yes, pork, lard, when it's done as a fully natural animal, that would be pasture-raised and organic and all that kind of stuff, is absolutely phenomenal for you. It could be the best fat for a human. I know. You might be saying, I heard beef fat was. Yeah, it's really good, and ruminant is fantastic, but there's evidence to show pork fat's actually better. Duck fat, absolutely amazing. Chicken fat, I use these in my cooking all the time. All the time. Ghee, butter, and these. Awesome. Here's what I don't do, and that's these kinds of things. The worst thing that you can do is take caffeine and breastfeed. Yeah, I know, Eric, they told me to get off that stuff like alcohol and these kind of things while I was pregnant. Well, yeah, but do you know why you shouldn't use caffeine? You've been told it's a stimulant. We don't want to give that to the child, especially when it's in the womb. It's more than that, actually. Just want to show you. Even chocolate, you've got it. Green tea, you've got it. Oh, I can do green tea. It's low in caffeine, Eric, and it's not coffee, and, I can still breastfeed and stuff. Okay. And then you go up, and you go up, right? Okay. Plants produce caffeine as a pesticide. It distorts the behavior of insects that would feed on these plants, in some cases, causing paralysis or death. Yes, caffeine is a pesticide, insecticide that plants make. It's a neurotoxin. For us in small quantities, makes you feel good. Well, guess what? It is terrible for a growing baby trying to create a good nervous system, a quality brain. Central nervous system obviously is very sensitive right in the beginning. You want to create you want to create the entire tissue structure of the body to the optimal level as possible. Let's call it 100%. And every time you give too much sugar or toxins and things like caffeine, and that, you disrupt the growth process of creating an exceptional human being. That includes also putting things on the baby's skin like all these baby care products. They don't need any of that stuff. And what baby smells like that garbage that they sell you? That stuff is garbage for baby skin. They don't need any of that. You could use beef tallow. You could use a little bit of olive oil. You could use coconut oil on your baby's skin. You could use all kinds of things to put on his skin. You can also clean it with literally just baking soda. Aluminum free, totally natural, not that Arm & Hammer garbage. Get some real stuff. You don't need hardly anything to clean a baby. They're not out in the fields, sweating and getting dirty. We make things I was going to say that we make things way more difficult. What I meant to say is, or I was going to say was, we've been sold to use all these products that you just don't need. You don't need them. The baby doesn't need any of that stuff at all whatsoever. It's a waste of money, and it's bad for them. The other thing that you need to avoid is medications. Any medications you can get off of, Do not be taking pain relievers if you can help it. Don't take, well, anything that's coming in a pill, generally speaking, besides maybe a few supplements that are natural, that I would even be careful with those. All of the chemicals that you put in your body are pretty much going through to the baby. So if you wouldn't give your baby adult ibuprofen, then you shouldn't be giving yourself ibuprofen. Eric can understand, though. I got a headache or I got something else. There are other ways. Get a massage by the husband. Work on your head, pressing your head. Get massage. Go take a bath. I mean, you look for any other way to do it. If you have to, then I understand. Then you would want to have a protocol to help with the baby. That would be things like maybe a castor oil pack on the baby. There's a lot of natural, I hate to say midwives, but a lot of people who know about taking care of babies in a natural way. Trust me, they're out there. You just got to find them. Anyway, here's a graph. By the way, this is from the Lancet. These are countries that will breastfeed past 12 months, 1 year. So the light green, let's say Russia, Australia even, Canada, US, are pretty much 0 to 10. So, yeah, we pretty much don't feed our children past, well, it looks like could be even a couple months. Amazing. Yet, notice other countries that do. I think that's amazing. And you say, well, those are a lot of third world countries, and they kind of have to. Russia's really not third world country anymore. Canada's definitely not third world country. I think it's called laziness. Honestly, French don't want to breastfeed. This disappoints me, and it should disappoint you as well. Anyway, well, I encourage you to breastfeed as long as possible. I encourage you to take care of your milk. Take care of your breasts. Get sleep. Therefore, your body is good, and it creates good milk for your baby. We'll do episode 3 for conditions you might have and solutions. And then if the baby has to go on something other than breast milk, I'll show you options. Really good options. Okay? Thank you for listening. Appreciate you guys as usual. Maybe subscribe and all that kind of good stuff. Whatever everyone always says. Thank you. Take care of yourselves.